Okay, this is Rihanna Binkley with One Treasure Island. I am the project manager for this project. This is MeeSun Boice. She is a restaurant owner on Treasure Island and has a longtime affiliation with the community. It is Wednesday, March 2nd at 6 o'clock p.m. And we are recording for Treasured Stories, the oral history of One Treasure Island. So this is MeeSun and Coco.
Hi, Coco. Say hi.
And why don't we just get started at the beginning? So why don't you tell me about the first time you visited Treasure Island?
Wow. So this is 2022. My, how time flies. I moved to San Francisco in 2010. And I was, still, I've always flown to San Francisco. I lived in Southern California for many, many, many years. I did grow up in the Midwest, but I had moved up here in 2000, moved to San Francisco in 2010 for work. And so after a couple of years, in 2012, my father, my adopted dad, was ill and dying. And so I left my job in Southern Cal and flew to Kansas City and stayed by his bedside for about 3 weeks. So my mother and I were at the hospice. And, when I came back to San Francisco, it was still a new city for me. And I hadn't really created a circle of network of friends as I did in Southern Cal. I lived there almost 30 years. And so I didn't have those deep roots in history with anyone up here. And a friend of mine whom I had been introduced to another friend in San Francisco, Ali, had introduced me to some friends of his, and they were telling me about Treasure Island. And there's this little tiny yacht club with the Treasure Island Yacht Club. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And coming back from having lost my father, and around that same time, I'd lost my job. I had many, many challenges and feeling a little lost. And so I found this little tiny, little known yacht club that has this rich, rich history on Treasure Island. And so I started to become active, started volunteering, started doing dishes and planning events. And next thing you know, suddenly I'm the membership chair, and I'm inviting all my friends to be a part of this cute little, humble little yacht club on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean between San Francisco and Oakland that no one even knew about. And so that was actually exciting, because many people whom I would introduce to the yacht club who liked boating and sailing didn't even know about the yacht club or the marina or Treasure Island. And people who had lived in San Francisco 20, 30 years had never been to Treasure Island. And so that, I think that was part of the excitement for me, that here I am still new and I discovered this little gem, and that this is, pre-development. And, I started to grow with the island and learn all the things that were happening. So that's how I started to fall in love with the Treasure Island.
So tell me a little bit more about what you thought when you were at the yacht club, and what kind of led you to get more involved with the community.
Well, as I said, it was a discovery, and it was exciting to introduce those who had never heard of or known about Treasure Island. And so the more active, and I grew up in the Midwest, and I grew up in this small church in Kansas City, Kansas, where there were maybe at most 75 members, but usually there's only 20, 25 that are very active. And so the little yacht club reminded me of that. And all of a sudden I became more active, sat on the board, and lo and behold, there was a position to be one of the officers. You kind of, in the yacht club, world, you work your way up. So I was a rear commodore, where you're in charge of all the events going out. And then you're the vice commodore, where you're in charge of putting together all the events, as long as you're willing to work, because it's all volunteer based, it's very, very small. And then next thing you know, I was up to become the Commodore. And, I'm the unlikely Commodore. I think, well, this is 2022. So that was back in 2016, which would have been the year I turned 50, which would have been the 50-year history of the yacht club that was originally originated from the naval history when the Navy was there during World War II. And just celebrating this yacht club. And I think, in fact, I know now it'll be 55, 56 years. I will have been the only second female Commodore and the only Commodore of color in the 55-year history. And I think it's a testament to, how you get active in a community, that no matter where you are or what race or nationality, if you contribute and become part of it, that I had this crazy opportunity to actually be a part of a little community. And then I learned more about the residents on the island and really, and of course, learned about the development. The yacht club had to be moved, and being on the board and the officers. So you started to work with the city, and really just organically started to learn what was happening on the island. And it became kind of a big part of my life.
Mm-hmm. So what was the next step then for you on the island?
Well, as I said, having worked with the city and learning about the development on the island, crazy enough, there was this opportunity to build a restaurant. The city did their best to try to provide services for the residents on the island. There's a grocery store, and there's a deli, and there's Araceli Cafe, and there are a lot of wineries and breweries as well, which again are hidden gems. And I got to know all the business side of the community. And there was this opportunity. There was this one little bar and grill that had been there for a long time, and the owners were not interested in building another restaurant. And so the city thought that it might be good to have a second, bar restaurant. And so my partner and I thought, he was also very active with the yacht club, my partner, Park Ulrich, and we decided to take a risk and say, let's build a restaurant. And gosh, 6 years later, and the restaurant's been open 4 years, but it took 1.5 years to build it. I have this thriving little crazy restaurant built out of shipping containers. And, it's this organic evolution of how I became kind of entrenched in this community that now that I think about it, it's become it is a very, very big part of my life. Oftentimes when we work, we separate, work, and then you go back home to your home and family. Well, my employees, all these years, they're my family and the community. And so, in fact, even our kitchen is a military kitchen. It's a Marine rapid deployment kitchen built entirely out of shipping containers. So talk about a commitment to upcycling, recycling, repurposing. And so it's been an incredible journey working with the community and with the city and with the developers. So I'm excited and breathing a sigh of relief that have survived so far this crazy pandemic, knock on wood. So, yeah.
So what did you realize when you opened the restaurant? What kind of, I know that you've mentioned your connection with the community, but how do you feel like the restaurant specifically brought you kind of closer?
Well, I think that one of the key people that I did meet in the beginning was Sherry Williams with One Treasure Island, and she's very humble, and not a lot of people know her, but then those who are on the island know her. And she had, I had met her through going to the board meetings and just a wonderful person. And I remember talking to her and telling her about our plans and learning about what her commitment to the island community and the island residents were. And coming from the Midwest, that commitment to community was something that was very important to me. And she was very supportive. It wasn't an easy process to go through the approval process. And as we, got to know each other over the years, she would tell me about the programs. Recently, even One Treasure Island was able to get a grant and provide 5 meals, free meals for every week for the last almost year for the residents on the island because of One Treasure Island.
Mhm.
And how amazing was it that she put together a program that helped support the restaurants and the businesses on the island that then allowed us to support the residents on the island. And that is part of what I love about the community, and having an organization that brought everyone together, brought the businesses to the residents and residents to the businesses, and to let residents know that there is an organization that looks out for them, cares for them. And by the way, here are the businesses that look out and care for you. And one of the, and with kind of Sherry as an inspiration, I had told her that I want, fingers crossed that we're able to build this restaurant, that I wanted to commit to the community as well, inspired by her commitment to the community. And over the years, we had little opportunities, even during the pandemic.
Mhm.
We partnered with the supervisor Haney to do some free food program at that time. And then subsequently, just recently, we're still doing 200 meals every Thursday to give to the residents on the island. So there's so much sense of community that I could probably talk for hours. So I don't want to bore you. I don't know. I don't know what other questions you have, but I can go
No,
on.
that's great. That's great. Can you tell me some about your most memorable experiences, either working or just being on Treasure Island?
Wow. How much time do we have?
We've got a lot of time.
Um,
You're great.
I think what I loved and what I found exciting was, discovered this little community, and whatever it is that I wanted to do, ideas, or even there've been some memorable memories with the restaurant itself. And I'd love to go into some of that with you, but I probably say there are two things, memorable and probably precious to me is, one of them was when we were in construction, and there are these three kids, Eli, Xavier, and I apologize, the third boy, he lived in the city, but Eli and Xavier lived on the island.
Mhm.
And they were 11, 12, the three of them, and we were under construction. They said, I think it was Veterans Day, and the three kids just walked up, a young African-American, Xavier, Eli with his Coke bottle glasses, and the little Rainbow Coalition just walked into the construction site, and they said, hey, we don't have school today, and you're building something here, and can we help?
Oh.
And it was, that was my introduction to Treasure Island. So trust me, the construction, the daily, the 5 in the morning to 11 at night. And I was amazed at these three little boys that went to school together. The two lived on the island, Xavier and Eli, came, and on their day off,
Mhm.
instead of causing trouble and being, rowdy, they just wanted to do something meaningful. And gosh, it's been a while. I hadn't even thought about them. I mean, they've grown up, it's been 4, 5, 6 years now. So they're going off to school, but I was so, I think a lot of people dismiss kids and think, hey, get out of the way, you're in the way. And I always have this belief that God in the universe presents us opportunities to step up. And it's not in the big grand gestures. It's just in these little moments. And these three little boys just walked in, and kind of miss them now. I'm thinking about them. Sorry. And immediately I was just touched by the fact that they wanted to do something. And so I said, you know what? I can't hire you because of child labor laws, but I'll make a deal with you. I'm going to help you start your own business. And, we need help with landscaping. We're doing a lot of planting here, planting and digging. And if you want to help us with landscaping, why don't you guys have your little landscaping business? And over time, if you wanted to water, maintain it, but if you want to help us plant, and then I could be your customer and you can have your little business. And I said, if you're going to have this business, you need to have a motto. And there's like, what's a motto? Like a credo, something that you know, like at Merced, it's, you know, come for the food, come for the view, stay for the food.
Mhm.
And so little, you know, rule that you live by. And I said, you know, they're like, well, like what? And I said, my favorite is live in the realm of possibilities and that anything is possible. And so they all three repeated it and they said, oh, we like that. Can we take that? And I said, sure. And I said, now the three of you have to decide on a name, because if you're gonna have a business, you have to have a business name like we have Merced. And so they talked about it and I said, we'll work a little bit and then you can talk about it and then you have to vote. The three of you have to agree on a name. And so they agreed on a name called the Backyard Boys. They're like, it's kind of like the Backstreet Boys, but we're the Backyard Boys. And I thought, love it.
Mhm.
And so I said, every time, every day you come, we had an agreement. You first of all, you have to tell your parents that you're going to do this and that you're going to be here, so they know you're here. And then at the end of the day, I'll pay you, and we'll agree on a you know, rate that's fair. And I'm your client. So, and then you have to promise me that whatever you make, you take 50% of it and you give it to your moms. And that was the deal. And then, so not only do they now have a credo and a business name, and they showed up on the weekends, they showed up. And I was inspired by them and in awe of them, and I love them and I miss them. They still come in every once in a while, and they've grown from here to here,
Mhm.
taller than me. It's amazing. And so and that was and also they had to have rules. And so the rules were, you know, like what? And I said, how about no lying, no cheating, no stealing. You do what you say you're going to do, and you show up on time. And those were 5 rules, only 5 rules. And they memorized it. And every time they came, they had to tell me the rules and the credo. And it was real. And I told them, I said, if you consistently do this, and when you grow older, when you turn 18 and you're ready, I will help you open up a bank account. I will help you open up a business entity. And so they actually, one of the things, as we were building the restaurant, they didn't know about the board meetings.
Mhm.
And I told them, I said, because it was one of the first board meetings. It was at the old Oasis, and they have, I guess, once a year a meeting on the island, so that the island residents that can't make it to the city can come to the board meetings instead of always having it in the city at City Hall.
Mhm.
And so we happened to be catering an event. The boys happened to be there, and I told them, I said, why don't you ask your moms if they would come to this board meeting, because the board meeting is for you and it's about you. And
Mhm.
maybe you can share with the board about you. You have a voice. And
Mhm.
they had never been to a board meeting. They didn't even know about them. They didn't even know they could come. And Xavier and Eli came, and you would think they're kind of these shy boys. And they went up to, I said, you can tell them about your business, and that this is what Treasure Island is about. The Treasure Island is about you. You're the future, and you have a voice, and you can speak and tell them. And so they asked me to stand up with them, and they told the board, that Treasure Island Development Authority Board of Supervisors, about their business and about their name, about their credo, about their motto. And I would probably say that was a really good question, because you get so busy in the last 4 years in surviving the pandemic. I hadn't even thought about that. And that's my fondest memory. And I was so proud. You should have heard them. And that I love that they realized they can speak up, and that they have a voice, and they were so articulate and very proud. So that's probably one of my favorite memories. And then, yeah, I have to take a breath.
Oh yeah, that made me tear up too.
Yeah, yeah, that was amazing. And then my second memory that I love was how a simple idea during the middle of the pandemic, you see people rallying around, and I think happened to be out of town. I was in Kansas City to visit my mom. No, I wasn't even traveling. I had seen a video clip somewhere. I can't remember, but I had seen a YouTube video clip about a father who was a carpenter. I think he was out of the Midwest, Minnesota or something. And he was tired of his kids taking over. We don't think about the kids, how they're not able to go to school. And now kids that left the house, all of a sudden their school is their living room, their mom and dad's office and bedroom, and wherever they can find space. And so he decided, he said, my kids took over, my workspace and my kitchen and our dining room table. So he built a little custom desk for his kids. I think there were 3 girls, and made a video. And all of a sudden it went viral with these carpenters from around the US who were doing the same thing for their kids and even for the community. And I knew, the carpenters on the island, and they would come to Marseille. And I thought, what a great idea. And I emailed a simple spark of an idea, and how it can be achieved so quickly and doesn't take as much effort as people think it does. And I sent it to the carpenters that I knew, said, take a look at this video. And if you are willing to make the desk, I'll pay for the material if you're willing to donate the time, without hesitation. And Mike Ferrugia was the carpenter. The other carpenters were busy with projects, all of a sudden the pandemic and everyone's needing, parklets built. And he said, I have a little window of time. I love it, and I'm going to do it. And so we subsequently provided about a little over 51 desks for the kids on Treasure Island. And we had this little, message that said, you can be anything, on the desk. And it was a nice sturdy desk, not, just not a disposable, very solid and sturdy. Even one of our investors, when he heard about it and saw the desks that we were giving away to the kids on the island, he's like, can I buy some of those for my kids? And so that for me, and of course Eli and Xavier came. They were a little taller and bigger, but they were able to actually sit in the desks as well. And that's again part of how I love this community and watching these kids grow. We've employed a couple kids on the island, Marcel and Martin, that they were 16, never had a job, and they could just walk across the street to Marseille. And then they were 18, and Marcel actually ended up asking me if I would write a letter of recommendation to the school, as well as to he was trying to get some funds to go to school, and took quite a while. It wasn't an easy process, and watching the kids grow and the restaurant growing with the community. So those are probably my fondest memories.
Oh my gosh.
So sorry.
No, those are great. Those are great. How would you describe Treasure Island to someone who has never heard of it?
Wow. It is a hidden gem, and there is life and there's energy and a community on the island that many people don't know about, not only from the resident standpoint. I believe I was told that I think Willie Brown had this idea and a vision to provide housing. So there's the veterans housing, Mercy housing, and a lot of different, program housings on Treasure Island. And it's thriving with people, human beings, and individuals that live and breathe on the island, which I found amazing that many people that lived in San Francisco thought that it was this dark, dreary place, abandoned place, and understandably so. I mean, there were many abandoned buildings after World War II, but the construction there's a lot of movement happening, but not happening. And there's a thriving business community. There's, Woods Island Beer that are, he has places all over the city that they don't even realize that he's, was one of the first beer distilleries on Treasure Island. There is a grocery store, there is a cafe, there is, hot dog stand, and there are 2 little restaurants. And and there is an existing community and kids that are grown up on the island, and there is, of course, when you come to Treasure Island, it is the most spectacular view of San Francisco. If you love San Francisco, it's shameful that you haven't taken a moment to come to Treasure Island and see the view. And of course, Yorba Buena Island, it's under development now, but prior to that, so much nature and greenery. And I know that there are environmental organizations trying to preserve the native plants and trees. And I think that's very important. But there's a lot to be explored: distilleries and breweries and wineries and businesses and art. There used to be a lot of artists there. But it is right now in a transformative time, but it is definitely worth a visit.
What are you hoping to see on the other side of all this development?
Wow. I'm hoping I'm still in business. I'm hoping I'm still on the island. I've built, not only the business, but very entrenched with the community. And I'd love to see the inclusion. And I know that of the 8,000 units, I think 21%, almost quarter of the development is set aside for, affordable housing. I know one of the first buildings that's going up is veterans housing. And one of our first employees is Mike Bartel, who was homeless, I think, for about 5 years and was in the veterans housing. And he felt they had set him out to pasture until he found Mercedes. And it's funny because I know he's a little bit older than me, and he calls me Mama MeeSun. So it's good to know that he'll have housing on the island. So I think what I would love to see is that the development includes and preserves the history, the naval history. And I think that's where the Treasure Island Museum, One Treasure Island, the organizations that have been around long before the development has occurred, and that they fight for that, for the 20% affordable housing, for the history and preserving it through the museum, and for businesses like myself that believed in a vision when nobody else did, that there is an element of inclusion in that, and that there is still, hopefully, I know that there's this, the fearful word of gentrification is always scary, because that means those of us that have been here long before the first building went up, but of course, the plans have been in place, I think, for over 20 years. But there has to be, I hope, wishful thinking, that there is this way that the developers and the development keeps the community intact, and that there is a place for all of us, whether we're veterans, whether we're, any of the program housing and affordable housing and old businesses, and not just make way for, high rises and just fancy restaurateurs that have big fancy names. I just sell tacos and fish and chips, and I'm hoping that I can still do that. So far, the developers have been very nice. The city has been, very, cooperative and working with us and communicative, but it's still, at the same time, as a business that's been around long before the fancy places come in, I'm hoping that there's a charm and a community. And how that happens, I'm not sure. I think it happens if we're allowed to, participate in the growth instead of being pushed out. So I think as the residents that have been here, and myself, that there's a way that we can all integrate together. So we shall see.
Yeah,
time is the only true test of anything. So that's why I'm excited, actually, about being a part of this, because I appreciate being given the opportunity to give a voice, to share, what it was like to when the kids are just walking in and being part of the construction and being part of the community and before the high rises come up. So let's see what time reveals.
Right. And if it's okay, I'd like to backtrack just a little bit to how you were raised in the Midwest, and kind of what the similarities and differences are of being in California. And I know that you've kind of brushed on the fact that Treasure Island has kind of a small town feel, and maybe even expand a little on how you think things would be different for your restaurant if it was in a different neighborhood or a different city. Like if it was in a different San Franciscan neighborhood or a different city in general.
I think that, wow, that's a great question. I think part of it is, so I ended up in the Midwest. It's interesting, thinking about how to answer that. I like my little rescue here, rescue from China. And like most of the people on Treasure Island in the community, I grew up an orphan, not having a home, not having a place or community or even a family. So I grew up in an orphanage in Korea till I was 7.5. So it's the only childhood I knew was, sleeping on the floor, eating on the floor, sharing toothbrushes, brushing my teeth with salt, and living on a bowl of rice a day. And perhaps that's where any kids that come to Marseille, I always tell them, if you're ever hungry, you come in. And even Mikey, he hasn't been able to work because of his knees. And sometimes says he doesn't want to bother. And when he comes in, I always say, have you eaten? I know what it's like to be hungry. And I don't know, and I don't think that I would ever have owned a restaurant anywhere else except on Treasure Island. Certainly not in a big city on the city side like San Francisco on the city side. It would have been too difficult, too expensive. I'm not a fancy restaurateur. And coming from the, being adopted from Korea into Kansas, and not only not on the big city side, but on the Kansas City, Kansas side, where I grew up with a lot of racism and prejudice, and I was the only Asian in the whole school district, and I was called names, and I know what it's like to be rejected by society for what you look like. These are really tough times, and that's why I when I came to Treasure Island, I don't look at that the people are poor or their backgrounds. I just see this community that gave me an opportunity to build and do something that I never thought I would do or thought I could do. And in this little microcosmic island, I was able to live an American dream. I've been on my own since I was 18. I had my own companies in tech, but it's not the same as building a place, a brick and mortar that people then can come and commune and work and give people jobs and opportunities. I have employees that have been with us since the day we opened, and even through the pandemic, they have come back even stronger and even more loyal. And only in an environment like Treasure Island that doesn't judge, and at least the Treasure Island I know, that didn't look at me as you're a fancy restaurateur with the big pockets. That wasn't it. It was, hey, you want to build a restaurant and give us a presentation. How are you going to do it? And it allowed me to live an American dream that now in 4 years, the last 18 months, I won't even count, but we've had huge wedding on the lawn next door. We've had ESPN hold their concert. We had a circus on the lawn that we negotiated tickets for the kids on the island to go to the circus for free. There was an outdoor movie when we first opened, that the island, I wanted to make sure that the island kids could go to the movies for free. There, how you could, it was this opportunity to execute on an idea to say, hey, yes, we're a business, but hey, there's a community here, and why can't we all do that together? And where else? I don't even, wow, that question is amazing, because I think about, I'm so busy just every day working and doing and being, that I haven't thought about the fact that I don't know that I would have had this opportunity to do this anywhere else but Treasure Island. And to be embraced by the community. And as I explained earlier, one of the first people I met was Sherry, and she was telling me how she supports the community in the multiplicity of ways. And I thought, I want to be a part of that. I want to do that too with this little business that I'm doing. And I didn't know what that looked like, but the opportunities present themselves, whether kids are hungry and they just want to, in fact, there are now about 12 to 15 kids that would come in, and they all know when they come in. I remember when I first met them, they were running around and running through the succulents. And instead of being angry at them, I realized food is magic. And I said, hey, do you like French fries? If you want French fries, then when you walk through those gates, you have to remember these rules. You have to respect the plants, respect our employees, respect our guests, and respect each other. And then they started coming in, and I said, well, if you want to plant or help pick up around here, then we'll give you free food. And they just have to share and memorize those rules. And I show them respect, and in return, they show us respect. And where else can you do that? Where else can you impact this little community? And there's absolutely no way that I could go into any neighborhood on the big city side of San Francisco. And so it's exciting, as I reflect on these based on the questions you're asking, that I was given this opportunity. So, wow, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about maybe what your biggest life lesson is? I know we kind of probably went over it, but or your biggest takeaway from the island?
I think that, I feel in a way that I've grown up with the island as well. I mean, of the 12 years that I've been here, I think 10 years has been being involved with Treasure Island. It's definitely, I'm trying to think who I was speaking with about how I was asked to do a survey of how businesses can be supported. And I think through One Treasure Island, yet another initiative that they do. And I think that what I would think would be wonderful, if there was a way that Treasure Island, with the development, if the developers hear this or ever ask my opinion about it, that they're not just developing homes and fancy places, that they think about heart and compassion, empathy and community, and really show this new quote unquote neighborhood that they're calling it, that there was a way that we could be a community and create that community and set an example of how a community can coexist together, no matter what, social, economic scale that we live in, no matter what race, color, creed. I mean, my restaurant's the Rainbow Coalition. So from LGBTQ down to, POC to, and that's what my goal was at the restaurant, and to that kids and no matter who walks in through the door, that they're respected and fed and they find joy in each other, that we're, Merced has become this destination where families and pets and kids and grandkids and people celebrating their 90th birthdays come together and commune together. And how amazing would it be that Treasure Island could show how community can come together, that we're not this haves versus have-nots, the high rises versus the low rise and low income. So though they're low income, so forget about them, and they're high income, so let's sit on a hill, that we can all commingle and coexist together. And I know I might sound like that's a beauty pageant answer. now that I say it, I didn't know what I was going to say, but I'm living it. I'm living in the heart of it, that I built a business and that we can include the kids that live on the island, hire people, formerly incarcerated men and women, from homeless veterans to, the LGBTQ to, I speak a little sign language, and we had a few customers that actually Shay lived on the island, and whenever she would come to Treasure Island, to the Merced, I would practice my sign language. How awesome is that? And one of the greatest gifts, she did finally move off the island, but her friend gave us this little sign that said, "Welcome to Merced." How cool is that? And it is possible to build a community with inclusiveness, and that it doesn't matter, where you live or what you do, that we're all the same. And I, hope to play a little part in that, and would love the opportunity to be a part of the future of that.
That's
Tell the
amazing.
developers to talk to me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much, MeeSun. Did you want to say anything else? This has been great.
Yeah, is it okay?
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, their questions are good. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Another thing that just a little side story. I recently posted, I finally got my 4Ocean sunglasses. I'm sorry, not 4Ocean, Ocean. Oh gosh, take that out. I finally got my ocean cleanup sunglasses. And it's amazing how life comes full circle, because there is a young man named Boyan Slat. When he was 16, he had a Kickstarter campaign to had this idea to clean the Great Garbage Patch. And imagine some young kid in the Netherlands with an idea that most people might dismiss. And I remember thinking to myself, good for him. I mean, here he is, this young 16-year-old, and that's what he wants to do. Why wouldn't I support that? And I donated. Little did I know, 7 years later, that, in fact, if I recall, the Kickstarter campaign, he raised $31 million with this idea. Mark Benioff became one of his biggest supporters, Salesforce, and he built the System 1, which they nicknamed Wilson. And it was going to be launched out of Alameda, going past Treasure Island to the ocean on its way to the Great Garbage Patch. And the producers were looking for a place to film live simulcast. And I, in that time, had built this crazy little restaurant on Treasure Island called Merced. And they found Merced and they live simulcasted. And I met Boyan Slat.
Wow.
And I still stayed. I'm actually friends with him on Instagram and Facebook.
Wow.
and met him and served their whole staff during the whole time and during the production. And that's what's magical about the island. And I think what's magical about Merced is all these amazing stories and experiences that I could go on and on and on, and I don't want to bore you with, but if you had more time, I'd tell you more stories. I should write about Merced experiences, because there's some pretty fun, amazing people and experiences that I've had. So
that's
yeah,
amazing.
Life is one big circle, and what comes around goes around.
And so you received sunglasses that were made from like the recycled plastic from the patch?
From the ocean, from the Great Garbage Patch.
Wow.
And that's just the first. There are a lot of other companies that take recycled materials and build products out of them.
Yeah.
but they're very, very conscientious about what they make. Their sunglasses actually has a QR code that
Mhm.
links you to, that logs you in, and now you have that account. And then if somebody has a QR code and found your sunglasses, they can send it to them and they'll get it back to you.
Oh, wow.
So they utilize technology, and they
Yeah.
now built these interceptors for all the rivers. And they did a study of, first they are, doing a two-prong approach to clean the ocean. You
Mhm.
have to, the garbage patch is just growing and growing, and it needs to
Mhm.
be cleaned. And so now they have system 2, which they call Jenny, that's already been launched. But and they studied the garbage, what kind and what to do, what kind of materials. So I think they're going to start building a lot more materials and products out of that, because they're just tons and tons and tons of garbage that they're cleaning. But in that time, quietly and silently, while they were building the system 1 and launching it, they built an interceptor that's
Mhm.
solar powered, self-powered. And they did a study that all the where does the, it's kind of like if you have a leak in your house,
Yeah.
you have to go to the source of the water. So they found the source of all the garbage were all the rivers. They analyzed all the rivers and said, of all the rivers around the world, which are the top 100 rivers that are doing most of the pollution? And they built the interceptors that help collect the garbage before it comes to the ocean.
Mm.
And it's an amazing organization, and their commitment. And this young man, 16 years old, and their commitment. And I got to meet him. I had to build Marseille to meet this crazy guy. I mean,
Yeah.
crazy. It's just
Mhm.
amazing. And so he's not crazy. He's amazing. But just the craziness of
Mhm.
having not known that, believing in this young kid.
Yeah.
And the kids on the island, I hope, I hope to inspire them. And many of them have said, when we grow up and we want a job, can we come here? And I said, absolutely. You walk in through the door and you'll always have a job. So I hope the developers allow me to stay around so I can keep hiring them. So
I love that. That's so great.
yeah.
Well, thank you, MeeSun. Thank you so much. That was amazing. And I think we are going to go ahead and stop the recording, but we can chat
Okay.
for a little bit on the other side if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again. And that's it. That's
Thank
for
you.
signing out. All right. Bye.